Good morning and welcome to Fullerton College. We are really happy to have you here for the open forum for the candidates of the president of the college, the future president of the college. You are going to meet the three candidates that the searching committee selected to be moved to the second level interviews. I'm going to explain to you the format of this forum. First of all, we are going to have, first of all, let's remind you that you need to turn off your cell phones. Please. The forum for each candidate is going to last 45 minutes. One of the important parts of the forum is that you listen carefully to what they are going to present to you, but also the Board of Trustees is really interested in having your feedback about your impressions from this forum. The timeline to submit your feedback is very short. You have to go to the website of the college, Fullerton College of the district, the North Orange County Community College District, to click in the link and submit your impressions about the forum, about the candidates. But the deadline is today at 5 p.m. So I would recommend to you that after you are done with the forum, go to your laptops, tablets or cell phones and submit your impressions as soon as you can, because the deadline to have the impressions considered by the Board of Trustees will be today at 5 o'clock. The structure of the forum is, first, the candidates are going to have 4 minutes to do an introduction. Then they will have 2 questions that I'm going to make. They haven't seen these questions. And at the end of these 2 questions, you will be able to make questions to the candidates. You have over there a microphone where you can be able to address the candidates. And at the end of the time, the candidates will have 2 minutes to wrap up. Okay, can you hear me okay in the back? Okay, good. So it's my pleasure to introduce you Dr. Juan Avalos.
Hello, good morning. First, I want to thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here. A little bit about my background. We'll do resume stuff first, and then I'll get to the important stuff. So my name is Juan Avalos. I hold a BA from UC Davis in Applied Behavioral Sciences, master's and doctorate from UCLA in higher education, with a focus on research, focus on institutional philosophies, frameworks, and systems. So I have kind of a global educational background. I've worked in higher education all my career, 20 years in higher education at all different levels. I've worked at 4-year private, 4-year public, and 2-year public. So for 12 of those 20 years, it's been at California community colleges. And what drove me to California community colleges is the mission of California community colleges and the students that we serve. That's kind of how my trajectory went. Most recently, currently I'm the Vice President of Student Services at Saddleback College in Orange County. There I formally serve as Vice President of Student Services. I also have the distinct pleasure of being acting president whenever the president is out. So for the last 5 years, 2 months in the summer, I'm the guy. And it's interesting because I know when that opportunity was afforded to me, I thought that maybe not a lot of big things would be happening. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. I've had to deal with very serious issues. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we had a death on campus that I had to manage. President was away, unable to be reached by cell phone. One of the first decisions we had to make was, do we tell him or not? Do we wait until he gets back, or do we handle the situation? And we chose to handle it. So he found out 4 days later, once we've kind of begun the college to move forward. So 6 years, I've been almost 6 years at Saddleback College now. I spent previous 6 years at Cosumnes River College in Los Rios District. So I feel very proud of my experience in California community colleges. It's been at multi-college districts. Some people don't like multi-college districts because they do present different sets of challenges and opportunities. I happen to enjoy that. Both districts have a strong reputation for academic excellence, a strong reputation for fiscal prudency. Different colleges, different culture. At Los Rios, I served in a number of student services dean positions. One of the nice things about Cosumnes River College was that there's an opportunity, every area had instructional programs under them. So as a student services dean, I had academic programs directly reporting to me, and that was wonderful. Let me switch over a couple more things on Saddleback, and then I'll switch into more of a little personal about me. So at Saddleback, I also serve as the accreditation liaison officer, which is a very important role. And we're, like you are right now, in the process of doing our self-study. I also serve as the Title IX coordinator, which is another pretty important role. Have formal training in that regard. So now let's move to more of the personal side. I'm a native Californian. I grew up in Southern California, South LA. If you want to be more specific, how many of you know where LA Trade Tech is? Okay. I grew up about 3 or 4 blocks from LA Trade Tech. So why is that important? Why is it important to me? Why might it be important to Fullerton College? I don't come from privilege. I come from a blue-collar family, first generation, immigrant, bicultural, biliteral, underrepresented, male, Latino, check all the boxes, right? And I'm very proud of that because I think it's an important perspective to have. As it relates to Fullerton, more than half of your students represent a number of those categories. So I think that's very, very important. Why Fullerton College? There's 4 major reasons. Rich history and tradition and excellence. You're doing wonderful work in student success and the achievement gap. There's been very clear public commitment to diversity and serving the needs of the community, which are changing. And then my personal mission statement aligns beautifully, I think, with the Fullerton College mission statement. My personal mission statement is to make a significant difference in the lives of others. Your mission statement talks about, student learners. Your vision statement talks about inquiry, about personal growth, and it talks about the power of education, all of which are great values of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Avalos. Now,
Sorry.
It wasn't me. I'm going to read you the first question that they are prepared questions, and you have 4 minutes to address them. Please describe your leadership style. Identify 3 fundamental principles that reflect how you get things done in today's challenging environment. How would you inspire others to follow you?
Thank you. I consider myself a facilitator, I think primarily. I think I understand where my strengths are. I understand where my limitations are. I understand that for large organizations, the power really is in the whole. I believe that anyone and everyone has an opportunity and the ability to provide perspective that's incredibly helpful. And it's not aligned with age, it's not aligned with rank, it's not aligned with title. I think it's aligned with content expertise. And that can happen at any level. So I believe firmly in that. I believe that I inspire movement towards the goals in a couple of ways. One, I believe in being trustworthy. And I don't expect you to trust me, and I don't want you to expect me to trust you just off the bat. And I have a sense that you all probably value that as well. I know this is a community that likes to vet its issues, its people closely, and that's great. That's important. So I focus on being trustworthy. I focus on being open. I'm focused on being clear. I'm focused on being very direct about what's important. And for me, in my 20-plus career, for me, my guiding light has always been student success. So in any conversation, I mean, I really don't care what the topic is. It's always going to come down to, okay, and how is that better for students? How is that going to improve learning? And because that's, I think, at the core of the business that we have. So those are the I think, the hallmarks of what I do. I like to be open. I like to be collaborative. I like to get things done. I mean, that's kind of my energy, is to get things done. I also understand that within education, sometimes certain things you can do fast and certain things you can't do fast. And so my general model has been, we will go as fast as we can, but as slow as we have to. Because sometimes you could go really fast, especially if we're all 100% on board. And people demand that. But sometimes some issues are more complex, are more serious, maybe even be political, and those require careful conversation and vetting. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want some water, we have here especially for you with your name on it. And the second question, please describe one or two specific strategies you initiated or facilitated to improve student success. How did you measure the results?
Thank you. I've always been a huge proponent of student involvement, student engagement, for a couple of reasons. One is, at UCLA, I studied under Alexander Aston. For those of you who know who the man is, has done a lot of work on student involvement, student engagement. Others in the field that talk about that, Vincent Tinto, a number of them. So I come from that kind of training, and I understand the value of it. I've also lived it. I lived it at UC Davis. If you understand, you know something about UC Davis, they're huge on peer-to-peer advisement, peer-to-peer interactions, student leadership, and that's what I did. I mean, I did that from day one. In residence life, in advising, in EOPS advising, summer advising, starting brand new clubs. I mean, I see the value in that, and I see the power of co-curricular. So given that, and given that I have a director of student life that's very energetic, she's very passionate, we share the same vision, there's a number of initiatives that she wanted to do. And I don't know how many of you have been at Saddleback, or if you've been there lately, but if you go on our campus, you will feel a vibe. You will feel a vibe. It will feel like a 4-year residential campus because we've intentionally created that. How many of you have been at Saddleback recently and been to our quad? Ring a bell? Doesn't ring a bell? Nod if yes, no. Okay. I mean, and it's great because it's one of the biggest challenges of community colleges and community college students, community campuses is students are busy. They have busy lives. They come to class, they leave. It's not a judgment, it's just the reality. So what do we do then to create a space where they're encouraged to stay? Because one of the most powerful things happens when they stay. They interact with you as an instructor, they interact with you as a classified member, they interact with you as another coworker, student, they get involved on campus, and every research, all the research in the world shows that when you do that, it leads to great success because you're building connection, you're building community. And so there's a number of efforts that were initiated by my director, so I'm not going to take credit for that. But I will take ownership of being the champion of a lot of those ideas. One was, I think it was like maybe 10 attempts at creating some sort of seating in the quad. We had like blow-up couches, we had different kinds of chairs, and we never gave up. We kept trying because the concept was solid. We just couldn't find the perfect implementation was a little bit of an issue. So if you go now, you'll see our red lawn chairs. They're perfect. You go in and you see circles of students talking. You see mixture of people. You see energy. You see vibe. And that, I think, builds community and makes people feel comfortable. You'll see on our quad oversized chess pieces like this big. And students are playing chess with another student or faculty member, someone building community. We do... another program that I'm really proud of is we do TED Talk Tuesdays, where it's organized through our Student Life office. and we come together as a community. In that room, in that moment, you're not a student, you're not a staff, you're not a faculty member, you're not an administrator, you're just a member of our community. And the way it works is any member of our community could offer up a topic and present it. And then you get members of the community engaging with you. So you do a couple things. TED Talks are usually pretty cool and interesting. So I supported that. I went to every single one. And I made sure that I was one of the people who presented one. I presented one on, it was called, I think, the urban gardener or the guerrilla gardener, which was someone who in South LA was converting, turning into just, there's a lot of empty spots of just dirt, and he was creating gardens, community gardens. So while I initially didn't have a passion for gardening, I had a passion for the topic because my dad likes to do that in his yard. And he's probably implementing all the sustainable things that are out there. And so that was a connection for me. And so it was an opportunity for me to share with my members of my community who I am as a person, not as a VP, who am I as a person. So that was powerful. Right now we're doing the One Book, One College that we support also as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Avalos. Now is your time to ask him questions. You have the mic over there. So who is the brave one? First one? Go, Jennifer. Oh. Okay. We need a mic.
I bet you can hear me anyway. And then he turns it on.
Okay, you're going to have to stand this way, and then it won't screw it up.
This is a little tricky.
There's the charm.
I have what I think is a very important but short question.
Sure.
Once I can speak without squealing. As the president of Fullerton College, what is your role in curriculum?
We know that in California and in California community colleges, there's this thing we call 10+1, right? You familiar with that? Right. And so in our system, in our great system, the primary responsibility for curriculum and for learning is left with faculty and subject matter experts. And that's where it's at. And then ultimately, the college and the district, the Board of Trustees specifically, would then rely primarily upon that recommendation. So my role would not be kind of a hands-on role in the curriculum, because that's really part of the role of faculty. I think where college administration would play a role, and where the Board of Trustees and where the Chancellor would play a role, would be providing a perspective of what we might be hearing out there from business and industry about trends and things changing, sharing ideas, bringing perspectives, and then as faculty see the relevance in that, and as content experts want to take that on, then those come forward. So it would be not a hands-on, but I think there is an involvement, and I think there's a responsibility to weigh in on topics. Because this is a challenge, right? And Fullerton College is no different. You're a comprehensive community college, right? You're trying to serve the needs of all. And you're trying to do it by way of transfer curriculum, you're trying to do it by way of CTE programs and just lifelong learning kinds of things. But sometimes we overextend ourselves and we're not as successful as we can be. And so having a conversation about where are we strong, where are those alignments clear with what we want and what the community needs, I think that perspective is an important one. And where we're not as strong and we can't revitalize something, and sort of having a conversation about what do we do next and what are our highest priorities, I think there's a role to be played there. Thank you. You ready?
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Dr. Avalos. My name is Juan Salazar, and I'm a
Gallo.
Yeah, I'm a student here at Fullerton College. I'm a former Marine Corps veteran, and my question for you is, like, what is your experience working with veterans, and how do you plan on utilizing that experience here at Fullerton College?
Thank you. For those of you that know Saddleback College, if you know Saddleback College, if you don't know Saddleback College, I'll tell you. The veteran experience is a very important experience to our campus. When you come to our campus and you come to our quad, very quickly you'll see the Veterans Memorial that we have on our campus. Very beautiful. Our Board of Trustees values the experience of veterans. We have a Veteran Center. I believe we're one of the first to create a standalone Veteran Center. We have a Vets Coordinator Counselor that organizes it. We have another special counselor that's involved in it. We create special spaces for our veterans. The One Book, One College program that I mentioned that we're doing now is based on a book, 5s and 25s, which is from the veterans' experience. So there's tremendous value already in the last 6 years that I've had working in higher education and the veterans' experience. So I already come with that. I come with that interest. I come with a manifestation of what that looks like. I'm not as sure the extent to which that's happening here, but I think when it comes to student success, I mean, veterans are part of that as well. I mean, they're part of that formally because you're a member of our community, but you're also part of that formally because in the student equity plans, veterans are one of those groups that the state says very important to us. So that there will always be a place for veterans. And so I believe in creating space where community is met. There's challenges that come with being a veteran around academic planning and your vet's benefits and implications of that. When school is not in session, implications of that. So I'm very mindful of it. I value it. I would look to, if I were to be president here, that's something that would be a priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Queen Peterson. I'm one of the counseling faculty here, so I have two questions. Because SSSP is a huge funding source for our district, and every student has to have an educational plan. So the first question, that really relies heavily on the counseling faculty. So my first question is, what is your experience working with counseling faculty and the many mandates and activities that's associated with SSSP? And my second question is, how do you view counseling faculty's role on campus-wide committees and the shared governance process?
Thank you. At Cosumnes River College, one of the primary roles I played there was Dean of Counseling and Student Services. I was there in that role for 5 years. And currently, as the VP of Student Services, counseling, generous counseling is one of the areas that direct line report. So I have extensive experience on the wide array of issues, extensive experience on the funding portion of it, and extensive experience on the role of counselors. Because it's always a tricky kind of conversation at every place that I've been. Because the role of a counselor is unique in many ways, but it's very critical, right? Because students, it's one of those positions where students coming to our campuses sometimes are trying to find their way. And being an open access institution, what that means is that everything that you have going on in your life comes with you. And you can't just park that at the door. And that's one of the beauties about the counseling position at community colleges, because it is a broad-based position that handles academic counseling, personal counseling, crisis counseling, transfer counseling, career counseling. It's the whole gamut. Why? Because the whole student comes in with those elements of it. The challenge becomes then how to then take all of the wonderful, talented people and all of the wonderful, very important needs, and how do you mesh it together is one of the biggest challenges. So to answer your question specifically about how I see the role of counselors in the committees and such, counseling faculty are college faculty. And just like any other faculty member on campus, they play a critical role in governance. They play a critical role in committees. In some, because of their specific expertise. In others, because of their leadership on campus, right? Where it gets tricky is identifying what the right mix of time in front of a student versus time on committees. And I know this is not unique to my college. I'm sure it's not unique to a lot of other colleges, but those are always ongoing conversations. So the first place that we go to, the first place I go to, is the faculty contract, right? Because that's the agreement we have that faculty have entered in with the Board of Trustees that says this is how we're going to do this. And we look to it for direction. And so another place where we look for direction is, one of the things we do at Saddleback is we continually reach out to students to get a sense of their experiences across all of our areas. And oftentimes counseling comes up. It comes up as both a high priority and not enough of. So on our campus, one of the issues that we're grappling with is availability of counselors. Because students have said, so when you look at all of our student services and that come out, almost across the board, students are very satisfied with the bulk of our services. 75% or higher are saying, we're good. But when it comes to counselor availability, they're saying it's more like 40%. So we have an issue. We have a disconnect. So at that point, then we have to engage in conversations about how do we do it. When the mandates came down from SSSP and it looked like, hey, this is all going to come on the backs of counselors, my faculty were talking to my dean. They're like, how are we going to do this? We need more counselors. I said, we need more counselors. And I said, because I was invited to a retreat, I said, yeah. I said, I agree with you. We need counseling capacity. And I said, there's two ways we do that. One, you could bring in more bodies, absolutely, and we have a need for them because our ratio is not very high. The ratio we currently have at Saddleback is like half of what we had. The same amount that we had at Casumnas, but Saddleback is twice the size. So there's a ratio issue there that I recognize. That's one way. The other way is we have to look at how we spend our time. And combined, then that's we address the need. SSSP, very important. But sometimes folks don't understand the parameters around it. It's a categorical program specific for the core functions. So it just can't be spent on anything, but it definitely could be spent on counseling and counseling support, ed plans, follow-up. So it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Avalos. I'm Pete Snyder, the president of the Faculty Senate, and South Orange County, a basic aid financing model. North Orange County, not the same.
Correct.
I'm curious how you would make those adjustments, or how you foresee making those adjustments to a budgetary picture that's maybe not quite as robust as what you have down in South Orange County.
Sure. When I was applying for the position at Saddleback, I kept hearing that word. It's basic aid, it's basic aid. And I'm like, what's that? Because Los Rios is not, right? And I remember going on campus, driving around, and I recall hearing things from people about in student service saying, we don't have enough money for this, we don't have enough money for that. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Everybody says you're flowing with money, so why would that be an issue? And then I go through the campus. The stadium looks like a high school stadium. Have any of you been on our stadium? It looks like a high school stadium, right? You go to the engineering building, when it rains, like it rains, right? Like there's buckets and stuff. So I'm like, there's something wrong with this picture because everybody says we're flowing with money. So then as I learned about it, then I understood why that is. So South Orange County is a basic aid district. Some folks in our community like to say that it's a community-supported district because it comes from property taxes, right? But one of the things that sometimes people don't know is that the way that we choose to operate is we mimic the state apportionment process. So we do the 361, approach. So when there were conversations around, growth, no growth, money, no money, we were having those conversations too, because our funding model allocates to the colleges as if it was coming from the state. So then, what does that mean? Then there's money left over, right? And so one of the challenges that South Orange has is that community already is taxed significantly. And we will never be able to float a bond for facilities, which is why the building that I said is the way that it is. Because if we're going to build buildings, we have to dig into what we call basic aid money. So it is a basic aid district, but many years ago when Orange County went bankrupt and there were issues, they fell out of basic aid. It created a lot of problems because they were living as if it was basic aid and couldn't adjust. And ever since, the funding philosophy has been, let's mirror the state so that we have that. Now, there are additional resources that we could count on, so it's not like 100%, but I think the process, the discussion elements are still the same. All of our budgeting and planning processes are the same. We come up with priorities, and then we figure out how far we could go with resources. If the reality here is there's less, but all the planning and the prioritizing would be the same. The issue is, okay, how do we fund the things that are most important to us, and what are all the sources of funding that we could draw upon? And so I think that's where the primary difference is. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jean Costello. I teach English here at Fullerton College, and I'm also the staff development coordinator. My question for you is, what is your sense of how we can work together to create a more equitable institution? And what I mean by that question is, what are things we can do as an institution, and also what role do you see the president playing in that project?
Can you speak more about on the equity piece? Like, give me a context.
So I'm thinking about, the projects that we do with our equity funding, right, okay, and our equity planning. But I'm also thinking about so equity from the perspective of how do we make the experience more equitable for students, but also how we create an institution that is more equitable for all of us.
I'll answer the broader question first. I think when it comes to being on the same page, having things appear to be equitable, I think at the core of that is having a shared understanding of where we're headed, and I think having a shared understanding of what's important. I think when we have different priorities and a different set of, what's most important, then that's where we fall into, something's missing, something's not missing, things are getting funded, other things are not getting funded, so we're not on the same page. But if we all agree that we have these are the top 3 things we need to do, and all of our time and energy is focused on those top 3 things, I'm going to venture to guess that we're probably going to have less of that disconnect. Because oftentimes, the sense of equity in that regard might be just come from different perspectives, right? So from one perspective, someone may think it's 100% aligned with our priorities, it's there, and someone may be looking at it slightly differently and say, well, wait a minute, this thing's not there, and so it's missing, it's not equitable, but maybe it wasn't part of the priority. So I think making sure that we're on the same page. One of the things I like about this college and this district is that you are, in my opinion, very clear about what some of your priorities are. When I look at your strategic plan versus other strategic plans, there aren't like 20 goals. There's 3, and they're very clear. Student success, achievement gap, relationship with the community, clear. And then what happens? Then you take those, and then every single department says, this is what I do towards that goal. And those are your action steps. It's like every single person. We're all pushing in the same direction. That, to me, is a good sign. And I think, that's important. Now, when it comes to student equity funding, which is also one of those categorically funded, special funded, you could only use it for X, Y, and Z kinds of funding, then it gets a little tricky, right? Because the term is a broad term, People understand it sort of, yeah, it's equity, it's diversity, it's a lot of stuff, so go get money over there. And that's a challenge because that's not, it's earmarked for specific things, and it's grounded out of your research on disproportionate impact in specific outcome areas for specific populations. So if in that process you identify gaps, and the money's supposed to go towards those efforts. Anything outside of that becomes harder to do. And colleges are struggling with this. Many, since we're in like second year of that, in the first go around when the plans were evaluated, there were a number of colleges that were funding things that were not very appropriate. You know, bathrooms for a president doesn't fit the equity plan. Funding for custodians or, you know, core services doesn't always fit. And so the challenge becomes, how do you do that? How do you stay true to the intent of the grant or the funding while leveraging it to do other things? Now, the beauty of it is the directive is go ahead and do it in these areas, but now you have latitude to partner with, you know, some of the other programs you have, EOPS, DSPS, if there are gaps in those areas. But they also say, we encourage you to leverage with the other programs that are out there, adult ed, triple SP. So then the challenge becomes, okay, stay true to all of these things. Where do they intersect? And where they intersect, fund. So the way we've done it internally, we try to approach large-scale items because you can't do boutique and then try to scale them. So we're trying to do things at scale. And then what we do is, if it's not 100% equity, then we do a portion equity, a portion general fund, and we try to merge those issues where they come together. So it's harder to implement, but it's possible, and a lot of colleges are doing it. And my understanding is that here at Fullerton that you're doing the same. You're leveraging all sources of funds, but it's being driven by the clear goals. I think that's the way you do it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Kelly, and I'm the Classified Senate President here at Fullerton College. Classified here at Fullerton College are great. We work hard, and we're dedicated to our jobs. Sometimes because of this, getting classified to participate on shared governance committees is challenging. And in a survey conducted last year, classified stated that they didn't have time or their supervisors didn't support them being on a shared governance committee. What might you do as president to encourage classified participation and get managers on board with it?
Thank you. And I know it's an important question because you asked it of the chancellor when she was here. Well, you asked it of every candidate. And I appreciate that. Thank you. It's not uncommon for classified staff, facilities staff, you know, folks that are getting things done behind the scenes to feel not as valued. I mean, that's common at every college that I've been at. But I think that you play a very important role, a very critical role, because when folks in offices, on grounds, aren't taking care of the things that we take for granted every single day, we can't have the amazing experience we have. So critically important. So then the question becomes, if we all feel that, and I'm going to guess that everyone in this room like appreciates staff at Fullerton. I want to believe that at the core they appreciate it. So then it becomes a question of, how do we show it? How do we manifest it, right? And you gave a couple of things. Can we be at the table? That's one way to express it, right? One of the nice things about Saddleback College is that it's a very shared governance rich environment where we have faculty senate at the table, you have faculty union at the table, we have classified senate is very active on our campus at the table, and then you have your formal representation group, you know, the union representation group at the table as well. And we encourage it, and so I value that, and I think there's a wonderful place at the table. The challenge becomes present when, you know, the question about how do you encourage managers to see the same value, and I think one way is you communicate that value. You communicate that value from the seat of the president, right? Because you're sharing with folks what are our priorities, what's important to me. So anything that would be important to the college and to me, I'd want to express it, and I'd want to create formal opportunities for that to occur. Where it gets challenging is in areas where, let's say there's only one staff member in an office, front counter, and the organization is going to suffer if the person isn't there. I mean, those become harder. In units where you have multiple people, you find a way. You find a way. But I definitely value it. That's something I encourage at Saddleback currently, and that's something that I would encourage if given the opportunity to be president. Thank you.
Okay, now we have time for a quick last question.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chris Lim. I'm the AS treasurer. South Orange and North Orange have a very different student population. One of the ways that's manifested in our school is that the food bank and the care bank are very essential to meeting the needs of our students, whether that's giving them transportation, looking into giving them housing, and giving them food because they can't meet that need. How, as president, would you meet the needs of our students to make sure that they get the care they need so they can be successful?
Thank you. And you're right. There are some very specific differences, but you will be surprised to know that there are some striking similarities. Because South Orange County is not a homogeneous county. There's pockets of wealth and there's pockets of poverty. And not sure if you would be shocked if I were to tell you that the number of homeless students that we serve is pretty high. The number of hungry students and community members we serve is very high. So much so that we currently have a program, free groceries program, in South Orange at the Basic 8 campus of Saddleback College, where every first and third Wednesdays we partner with our culinary program and a food distribution center, and we go to extremities of the campus where there's easy in, easy out access, and students and faculty and staff and community members come and they get free groceries. So that need is real and it's everywhere. So part of how I would do it here is support those efforts in that same way. We're doing something similar through our health center where we're going to open a food pantry for students because oftentimes students are hungry, and also a clothes closet. So same kind of thing. I see it. I see the need there. I see the need here. And it's something that I would champion because you're absolutely right. You can't focus on your studies if you're worried about where the next meal is coming from. So thank you.
Thank you. Now you have time for your closing remarks.
This went quicker than I thought it would go. First, I want to once again thank you for the opportunity because this is a real honor for me. I've been a member of the North Orange community for 4 years now. I've lived in Anaheim, and I currently live in Yorba Linda. I have 3 high schoolers. You're actually going to have to get behind the speakers if you want to stop. Okay? It's not designed to ever go in front of a speaker. Is that better? That's great. All right. So I'm an embedded member of the community already. This is the only one of 2 colleges that I would have even considered to apply for because I believe in investing in the local community. I'm vested in North Orange. My kids are in these communities. I'm invested in the external community. I feel passionately about the students you serve, the populations that come. I think at this point, as a top 3 finalist, the committee has indicated you have 3 people, they probably do the job. Now it's about how do things align, how do they mesh, what do you need at this point in time? And I feel that I have those things. I think I have a unique experience. I come from struggle. I understand the struggles of many of our students. And I have a compassion for what they do, and I have a firm belief in the power of learning. And with that, I'd like the opportunity to serve as your next president. And if I have that honor, I will serve it diligently. And if I don't have that honor, I will continue to be a supporter in the community that I'm currently in. Thank you.